Check the mic and make sure it sound right.
And I hope the mic does sound right. Hi, I'm DK Will. This is DK Will Talk About It. And this article here from today, XRP News Today, market eyes ETF decision as Ripple banking speculation grows. Yeah, there's a lot of things developing with Ripple, therefore a lot of things developing with XRP, all of which are positive and pretty much in a realm of its own when you compare it to other digital assets. There's some key points mentioned here in the article that XRP hovers near $3 as the October optimism builds. I'll address that real quick. The price of XRP is being suppressed. Is that quick enough for you? XRP trails Bitcoin, Ethereum, Sol, but may surge once spot ETF approvals and global utility adoption materialize. Head fake, decoy, lie, deception, call it what you want. Okay, XRP has all types of great fundamentals behind it, partnerships behind it, implementations behind it. What can you tell me about Bitcoin? What can you tell me about ETH? And what can you tell me about Sol? Now, of course, things are developing with a couple of them, not counting Bitcoin, which is just a store of value if it's allowed to exist, but they are nowhere in comparison to XRP. And the other deception that it's telling you, it says once the spot ETF approvals occur. I addressed that in a prior video, how the generic listing standards front ran the need for that to be a matter like they're trying to get us to believe that it is. I'll show you that here too. And then traders eye a breakout above 330 as Ripple's banking license and ETF approvals could spark fresh momentum. Yeah, right. Okay, I did release a short. I released a short and it showed that very likely a coupled handle leading to about 340, which is the previous high, and maybe busting through it, maybe not. So that's legitimate. But do you see how that alone is suppression? That's like a 10% hike. And when you compare that 10% hike to say what it mentions down here, it says for context, Bitcoin has soared 169% since January 24, when the first trading of the spot ETFs for Bitcoin were released. And then they say the trajectory would take XRP above $5. Can you see how they are giving you these terrible price targets to look forward to for XRP and these ridiculous timelines? Because the truth of the matter is, they know XRP is worth a lot more, and they're suppressing the price so that they can get it on the cheap. Now, as far as this mention about the ETF approvals, of course, I said this is an article from today, but to verify that the previous video I did about front running with the generic listing standards, check this out right here. Ripple news from yesterday. XRP ETF launches automatically while SEC stays silent during the shutdown. Why? Because just like my previous video said, the generic listing standards front ran this shutdown so that the things could happen automatically while they're trying to convince you that the shutdown is going to slow down the ETF launches, and it's not going to do that. Let's go down here and take a bit of this out. The Teucrium XRP ETF went live despite the shutdown because it was registered under the 1940 Investment Company Act. If you recall, I covered that in a prior video too. And that 1940 Investment Company Act is kind of like the financial chest where, yes, it's kind of a spot ETF, but they don't necessarily have to hold the asset. They can hold funds that hold the asset, even if those funds are, say, overseas. And so that's probably what's going on here. That's not probably what's going on here. That is what is going on here. But it does say the crypto market is active as this ETF went live despite the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission entering a government shutdown on the 1st of October. During the shutdown, the SEC is handling only emergency matters, leaving routine approvals, including ETF listings, on hold. Don't buy that. The generic listing standards takes away the hold, folks. This is a head game. And it's situations like this here that show it's a head game. Let me explain as briefly and succinctly as I can. When we look into this, we'll go and take a look at the Teucrium XRP ETF as well to show the head game and my paradigm's assessment of why it exists in the first place. Of course, it mentions it was registered under the 1940 Investment Company Act. I've talked about in the prior videos. I'll put the cards up there for you to look at. And in the meantime, maybe you should subscribe and hit the like button. But it says here, here's the question. How did the XRP ETF launch without formal approval? One expert explained that the Teucrium, I hope I say that right, XRP ETF wasn't explicitly approved by the SEC. Instead, he noted that silence is compliance, meaning the ETF went live automatically after reaching its regulatory deadline. Keep in mind, generic listing standards will go there too. Now, Eleanor Terrett, who I trust, but maybe has a not quite clear understanding, or who knows, maybe he's paid. I don't know. But she says that this ETF is registered on the Investment Act of 1940, and since the fund holds treasuries, cash, and swap receivables, it did not require formal SEC approval to start trading. Now, I don't know if she's ever qualified as a registered rep or her Series 7 or anything like that, but I have. I don't think she necessarily understands what she's saying, and I'll try to show that. Eleanor, I love you. Don't worry about it. I don't know you, but I don't have nothing against you. I kind of like what you do. But nonetheless, she wrote that spot ETFs, though, are registered under the 33 Act as commodity trusts and do require explicit SEC approval before launching. We'll see about that. So any new spot ETF won't begin trading until the SEC can declare the S1s effective, likely after the government shutdown. Notice the word likely. After the government shutdown is over and the agency has returned to operating at full capacity, she added. That could take forever. These ETFs are not going to take forever. But here's the point. It says this situation shows how regulatory deadlines can allow financial products to launch while the SEC is temporarily inactive. Investors now have access to the Teucrium XRP ETF, even as the market considers whether it counts as official approval. Then they give a list of the anticipated approvals and deadlines. Keep those in mind too. Anticipated approvals and deadlines. Let's go to the generic listing standards real quick. And here at the United States Securities and Exchange Commission website on the press release, talking about the approval of the generic listing standards for commodity-based trust shares. Folks, it looks like crypto assets are commodities. That being said, let's keep going. This was released on September 17, and they said they voted to approve proposed rules changes by 3 national security exchanges to adopt generic listing standards for exchange-traded products that hold spot commodities, including digital assets. As a result, the exchanges may list and trade commodity-based trust shares that meets the requirements of the approved generic listing standards without first submitting a proposed rule change to the Commission pursuant to Section 19B of the Exchange Act. So the exchanges that I mentioned before, the NASDAQ, ARCA, and the Chicago CBOE, can list these without going through this. Those are self-regulated organizations. That's what they're called. But you can see this does actually, unlike what Eleanor said, it does apply to spot commodities, including digital assets. And so when we read these articles with discernment, we'll notice that this article was by Zamir Altar, reviewed by Angela whomever on October 6th, and they quote Eleanor Terrett here, knowing that Eleanor Terrett is a trusted member of the XRP community. So it's not necessarily on Eleanor Terrett that she's quoted in here as saying that, it's on them and using it as a way to, in my mind, to play with the heads of the regular viewing public who is not alert and aware, and you probably wouldn't be as alert and aware unless you were subscribed to DKWILL Talk About It, about what really is going on here. And so let's not be tricked into thinking that the financial advisors don't sometimes put out products because they want to create revenue streams coming in. But at the same time, in this XRP debacle that we're in, they're trying to tie up financial investment capital that's available for those who are not supposed to be a part of the elite so that they tie it up. The Teucrium ETF is another way to tie it up. Let's look at that now. So briefly, what I mean by that. Here it is, double the daily move of XRP in a single ETF. Now, targeting 2 times the daily return of XRP for active traders seeking amplified exposure via an ETF. Now, here's the thing about it. Number one, it touches on greed, double your return, right? But what they don't share with you is along with double your return comes the prospect of double your loss. Is that just DK Will saying it? No, if you pay attention and you just scroll down here and you can see, what does 2x daily mean? It targets double return of XRP for a single day. If it rises 1% on a given day, the fund seeks a 2% gain. But if it falls 1%, then the fund targets a 2% loss. The fund positions are reset daily. So don't let greed and ignorance fool you. This is just another way to tie up investment funds through the financial advising outfits of the regular retail people who don't know how to deal with crypto themselves. And that's what it says right here. Seeks to deliver 2x the daily return through the 1940 Act with simplified 1099 tax reporting and no need for a crypto wallet or futures account. You see? So it makes it sound like it's doing you a favor. I don't necessarily see it as doing you a favor. Now, there will come a time if you're in this fund that the daily move of XRP will be great to get that 2x return. But it's also likely that they'll take it down and double your losses first. So when we look at these approvals that are occurring and launching automatically, that's part of the head game. Saying that the other ones, the spot ones, can't launch because the government is shut down. Where we see for ourselves, but that's not necessarily true. We're looking at it right here. So I strongly recommend, and I'm not always right, and I'm not trying to say I'm always right, but I'm close, that you subscribe to my channel. Because I am trying to address your paradigm, your understanding of what's going on, and I look behind the curtain. I don't buy the narratives. Why? Because I'm DK Will, and this is DK Will Talk About It. And I talked about it. Have a wonderful day.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right.